seems like a lot of detail to go in the public record. Not that I'm trying to hide anything, but you're more than welcome to come and, so I've never seen it, I agree with Roy, I've never seen it that detailed, so just.
I'll make a comment. I agree that I was shocked. Having said that, I think we need more detail than we have typically. Both on my council job and this one, these overviews tell me nothing. And when I joined both of these boards and I went back and looked at our minutes, I couldn't learn from it. So I like some detail, but this seems a little overkill. Maybe a couple grouping the first five into one statement and the second, you know, kind of an overview type statement, not each line. I agree with that. But not strike it totally.
But I think what you're saying is even with your township or your city stuff, the Roberts Rule of Order, is that, am I saying that right?
I don't think it's in Robert's Rules of Order, but I
But
think,
it's very, very vague. Summaries are very vague. I mean, unless you have a recording of the whole meeting.
For clarification too, that is how these are generated, that I type them during the meeting, then I go back and replay the tape and double check it against what I typed, and that's, so they are, it's not that stuff should be omitted at all, that it should be almost word for word of what you all said.
And I want to state very clearly, I'm not questioning
Right.
the accuracy,
Yeah.
I'll go back and check. I'm just saying that it's really a public speech that has been singled out to be put in the minutes. And it hasn't been done in the past, and I hope it would not be done in the future.
We should stay consistent. Either we put it in detail or we don't, every time.
Thank you. That's my feeling.
The rest of you?
anybody else?
Unless we're going to televise the whole thing, I mean, I agree with the summary. I think I understand the intent, unless we plan on changing things. It's nice to know what happened, but, I mean, if we're going to do it like this, then it's essentially you have to dictate the entire tape and put it in here because something has been left out. I mean, an or a yes or an and for accuracy, and then is that tape FOIA-able? Are they saved?
Yeah. And yes, they are foilable.
So Chris just needs to, just have it more general, not so detailed, right?
I'm good with that, because this is a waste of my time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of work. I've done that job before.
Yeah.
I mean, what should have been in there would have been that you had objections, and the township needed to explain things, et cetera.
We'll leave it at that.
Period.
So, what do you want to do?
Can
Can it
we,
be redone and then
Yeah,
present
and then
next month?
present it the next
See how you-
meeting.
How you like the revision? Is that fair?
That's fair to
Sounds
me.
good.
We can do that and then get another approval from the board?
Yeah.
summarize?
I would draw my,
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
What if we make a motion to,
I'm not
Obviously-
sure that we can move on without approving the minutes.
Yes.
No.
you can,
I don't
make a
think
motion.
you
I think they have to be corrected now, you know,
Yeah.
nobody can't vote, they have to be,
Yeah, I think
they
you're
have to be
right.
approved at this meeting, so you gotta correct them, somebody gets a red pen out and crosses out, whatever, but they have to be, I believe, I'm not, I can call Monica, but I believe they have to be, we had this issue where nobody would, in another organization, but they wouldn't approve minutes, but our attorney told us they have to be
Approved at the next meeting.
I
well,
think
approved
there's
now.
supposed to be
At the
proof,
end of this meeting.
right now, so somebody get out a red pen or whatever and cross, or decide what they wanted stricken, or
Would the board consider, say, 7A, I have seen cost recovery discussion, emergency response to the township? I mean, just, it was a discussion. Would you
What it was.
consider that?
Yes.
and then we
Yeah.
can strike?
Strike the rest.
But there was actually a motion in there and some other stuff you can't just
There's
delete
some-
either.
Yeah.
Right, the
The
So-
motion has to.
Right.
Well, the motion has to stay in there.
Right.
That's,
Right.
That's 11, right?
I mean, I guess I'm a little confused only because last month was just as detailed, if not more. And the last few have been just because of all the discussion going on about IFC. And nobody's said a word until, and I don't mind editing them. I can go through and delete it and probably have it up on the board in 10 or 15 minutes, but
I think we need to get that summarized. I mean, this is just too much detail.
So we could take out everything but the motion by Meridian, we could leave that, is that okay?
Item 19, right?
Okay,
And have some statement that you felt there were major concerns, however you want that worded, Chief. That needed to be addressed with attention.
yeah,
Just not just put words in.
sure.
I
Right.
mean, look at, just for instance, number 2, the fire district's attorney does not understand. I mean, who are we to say that? I mean,
He's
you
not
know,
here to
I'm-
represent
exactly.
himself.
So, you know, that's one of those things that, you know, where the summary is, less is more, and if you want to FOIA it, we have it.
You could say that Kirk Carrier did speak, you don't have to say what he said, but
Yeah.
that's a fact.
yeah.
And that we all suggested a workshop, just general stuff.
I will say many of the township's minutes are a little off, that the statements that are made in the generalized comments are not correct because of the way they're generalized, so too, was part of the reason I was trying to keep it detailed so you knew who said what.
Well, if you're going to quote someone, you better damn well quote them correctly.
Right.
But I don't see any quotations in here, so.
Okay, do you want to take a 10-minute break while Chris corrects the minutes, so we can okay the minutes, or how do
He's
you
not
want to
gonna
do
be
this?
able to do that and keep
No.
minutes, so you gotta suspend everything in fairness.
Well, but I don't know if we can, I'm going to call Monica and ask her.
It'll still cost you a whole round, you know, if you get on that phone during the meeting.
I would hope we could have you
We made
got
admin, right? Do
that
it.
one
We did it.
section 8.
You want the phone number? 826.
Hey, Monica, do you have to approve the minutes at the board meeting of the previous board meeting, or can you put them on hold and have them done? Can you table the minutes?
For corrections.
So we've got a section.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
You had to see it probably. A lot of work on that.
Last time.
19, I'm sorry, 19. That stays.
Yeah, 1, 10, 15, and 19.
1, 10, 15, and 19. Correct.
Okay, so they have to be approved at the next meeting. Okay, all right.
So there's a one here.
Right. just the
19 is the
thanks.
motion by you.
I think we have it worked out.
Right there.
Okay, you have to make the changes now,
So I
so you
think,
know.
think we got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
And then the motion is to approve the minutes.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right, yeah. I'll make the motion to ask for.
That's correct.
That's taking, that's leaving in item 1, 10, 15,
And 19.
Isn't 11 a motion? There's a motion in
That's 19, that's a
Oh,
motion.
okay, all right.
What was,
okay.
what did 15 start with? Because once I delete the first, the numbers
Kirk
change.
Carrier.
Kirk, it just says G. Janik requested Kirk Carrier to comment.
Okay, so then
that's what,
keep that part.
right, and then 19.
Then the
The
motion.
last one.
And the other one you wanted to keep was where Roy asked Greg to sit
Yeah.
down with Steve Cushion?
That's
Yep.
correct.
And Roy, okay, so delete everything up to Greg.
I think that's an important one, you know.
And then leave Kirk's comments, did I understand that?
No.
No,
Okay, so take out Kirk's comments.
yeah,
Just,
And then take out, and then leave the motion,
That's it.
that's it.
and the last one should,
Take out.
how do we record who was recommended to be on that Fire Code Board of Appeals then?
I've got it written down.
Okay.
I've got it all.
We didn't approve anybody or anything, so it doesn't have to be.
Okay, so the minutes are corrected. Did I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Like, any more discussion? on
Is there
the
anything else you want to delete anywhere else in the minutes later, or?
Not that I know.
Okay, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, this is the time for public comment on agenda items only. Please keep your comments respectful and limit them to 3 minutes. Any comments?
I got a question, that's just the stuff that you guys got on the thing here. Will I have a little bit of time to present what I have here towards the end here?
There's a second public comment
Okay,
for.
all right, okay.
Moving on, any public comment? Moving on, fire chief comments?
All right, Eric, if we could pull up those at your convenience. Much of what we do is weather related, so it certainly has an impact on call volume. I think we're down about 10%. You should see it one of the slides coming up. There we are. So the gray being 2017, we're at 585 in contrast to 16 and 2015. So about 10% off. A lot of fires lately. Unreal. And certainly, that's been a changing, evolving pattern here with all these fires. So, 300 series is your typical EMS, running almost 60%. Everything else is pretty much boilerplate. MBIs, motor vehicle incidents, we're running at about 39 as of 9/18. Don't think we'll meet 2016's call volume, maybe because of the winter, but certainly should be surpassing 2015. It's a lot of calls for motor vehicle incidents, and plus we don't have the construction on 196, which is really a driving component of the call volume. There you can see the call volume in contrast to previous years on a horizontal scale. So July 17 is the brown. You can see where we're at there. August, we tied last year. September, just one call so far. Special events, to date, we're at 38, which was for the whole time last year. 6 in the month of August, and respectively. Activity on the fireboats was up this year, between missing persons, boat fire, other activity. Geographically, the call volume, self-explanatory. You can see Douglas, Grace of Douglas, and even 196 is broken out so that you can view what we did and where. Grace of Douglas is up this month as far as calls, or I should say August, compared to last year. So it fluctuates, but it's nothing like it was years ago. Overlapping calls, down in August, and we're at 4 in September. By area, you notice the outside area, which is in mutual aid, 7% of the calls were something triggered on a priority to another call. So that's something we are careful about. Personnel response to incidents by individual. You can see the different categories, whether they're career or trainees. Protected property values. As you know, we had some gas leaks that were discovered on inspections. Good save. We had a good save last week in Ganges. We had a house fire that was caused from a pellet stove. And we don't have mutual aid in here, correct?
Correct. This is only in our district.
Right. Interesting enough, they've got some staffing challenges in Ganges, and our first arriving response was one firefighter with the building on fire. So they do a great job with limited resources, and thank God South Haven was there. We came in right after South Haven. So we caught the fire on the outside. Okay. Response times holding pretty true. We're at 5:11 for August.
That's about it.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda, I want to let you know that we met with Douglas Elementary School and we're working on lesson plans and going to work with meeting with the teachers so we can develop some lesson plans and get some input from the staff to find out where the need is, and then we'll be through the school year. We'll probably start in November because October is such a busy time. So we're looking forward to that. We have 2 other people helping us with lesson plans. Community CPR course, September 22nd is when we had, or when we're going to have the next class. Chris, you teaching that one?
No, but I think there's like 7 spots left if you know anybody who's interested for Friday. So,
Is that Michael?
yeah.
Michael McClure is going to teach that one. Next up is, and we have a photo of this, we've been on part of a coalition, I have, on reducing fire deaths in the state of Michigan. And it's been a very sensitive subject because the state of Michigan doesn't like discussing fire deaths and injuries. This fire marshal, Kevin Selmeyer, who is in the photo to the left of the gentleman in the red, back row, he's been allowed by the state of Michigan to address fire deaths and injuries. He invited about 24 people from the state to be part of a task force that will write a strategic plan Chris Manels and I were fortunate enough to be included in that selection process. We had our first meeting. Grand Rapids Fire helped us come up with a strategic plan based on an A3 component. And I have to tell you, it was one of the finest meetings I've ever been in. The biggest problem is the state wants reduction, and it's another unfunded mandate. They won't support anything monetarily. So you had a lot of diversity in there. The gentleman to the left, the tie on, is Ron Farr, State Fire Marshal, who's very influential and very knows codes. He's actually the chair of NFPA 1. So I wanted to share that with you. It's a tremendous program. We broke up into groups. Chris was actually in finance, and I was in education. There's an engineering group. So it's a very nice, dynamic group that we're proud to be part of. The plan will be released to us September 25th for review. It will be released to the public, I think, November 8th, and it will be implemented January 1st, which is a very aggressive timeline. The last group I worked with was 4 years. The problem stems from nobody funded. I want to share that with you. Next up, nobody go on to that? Grant update, we notified you last month that we got this grant from our insurance company. There was a discrepancy on the price, so this is just a correction on the match. It's a 50-50 match. It was incorrectly quoted by the insurance company last month, and we want to clear that up, okay? Next on the agenda, I don't think Heather's here. Heather, who's worked very hard at getting her EMTB certification, finally made it. As you know, she lost her fiance. He passed away, and she was right in the midst of school, and she had a tough time passing, so she did it again, and she made it. So we're happy about that. Yes, thank you.
Greg, do you want to show the pictures from that kitchen fire?
Yeah, please. Was that last Saturday? The days blended because I've been in training in Lansing. So we got dispatched to a kitchen fire in our district. It was our fire. Fenville came and helped Graska. And they had it under control. They thought that there maybe was some smoke and some additional fire. Asked us to respond. We got there. And it was a grease fire on the stove. And there was a young man who, 17-year-old, 16-year-old boy, I think it was, took the grease pan outside, called his dad. His dad had left to go pick up somebody. And when he went back in, he noticed the cabinet had smoke coming out of it. He took the back of his hand and felt the door, felt comfortable opening up that door, had enough knowledge to shut off the breaker for the stove, the whole kitchen actually. And when he opened up one of the doors to take a look, the plastic cup right there had ignited, and that's what was firing everything. The flames got in through the exhaust hood. So he did the work. We just did kind of, you know, the mop up and check for extension. We ventilated, removed the range hood. But the reason I bring this up to you is he came up to me and he says, "Chief, do you remember me from first grade?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't." Because my name is Luke Bird. He said, "All the stuff that you taught me," and not me, the program, I just happened to be the instructor. He said, "As a result, I knew not to put water on a grease fire. I knew to shut off the power. And I knew to call 911 right away." And then he said, I knew to feel the back of the doors with your hand. So every once in a while you have something that goes right. And I want you to know that as much money as you spend, and if you ever have any doubts about the educational process, this is a testimony that it worked. Because we're 4 other people in the house. So we're pretty excited about that. They're going to need a new kitchen.
I need one too, maybe I should.
Start cooking.
We're going to have you talk to Luke Bird. So.
Yeah, better have Luke.
Real
there.
dynamic, and I remember Luke Bird, I remember it because there were a lot of birds, he looks a lot different now. So pretty extraordinary, particularly when he told me he felt the back of the door with his hand. Because most people put water on grease fires, and it's violent. It is violent. And they actually took the pan outside, took the garden hose and got that cup, you know. So I gave him an application and hope.
What do you mean by feel the back of the door? I get the grease fire, I don't.
You know, there's fire in the cabinet.
So you open the cabinet door?
No.
You feel the door from the outside.
Really the application is if you're in your bedroom or you're in a room and the door's closed and you suspect the fire's on the other side, you feel the door hardware with the back of your hand. That's more sensitive, and if it's hot, you don't want to open up that door.
Because that has the oxygen.
You may never be able to close that door, and the fire extends into the room you're in. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
So he knew he could just check it, and it was warm, but it wasn't hot, and he just peeked and he saw it, and of course then it started flaring up, and he closed it.
Wow.
His dad put the hose in, he opened it up, put the hose on it, and knocked it out. And then Jeff removed all the electrical for us so they could have the refrigerator and use some of the things in the kitchen.
Has there ever been any thought to doing like just basic fire for adults in the community?
I was
Just
gonna
to make
say,
them
you could go to
aware
a store
of,
very fast.
I mean, young ones that are impressionable, they remember this, but I'm old, they've never taught us this stuff. I mean, I learned through the years, but I mean, I wonder if,
That's a good point. I mean, when I was in school, that's when they just started doing the red dot on your bedroom window, so the firemen knew which room you were in, stop, drop, and roll.
Yep.
But that came on in
Well, you're
like
right,
the
we need to
70s.
take that, we actually did it, when we were in the inspectors conference, Chief Mark Cleveland talked to me, and I'm aware of it. They have these suppression cans, they look like a tuna can, they're magnet. Where are all the fires in residential? Kitchen. Okay. So these are suppressant cans that you stick with a magnet to a stove. Can you pull that up, Chris, at all?
Yeah.
So what they do is they're heat sensitive, so when the stove gets too hot, the cooking area starts on fire, they drop suppressant and can put out a fire. First time I saw them was at Old Mill Heights back here. I asked the manager if I could have one. That was probably 10 years ago. I couldn't go anywhere with it. So Mark Cleveland asked me, why don't we do a regional grant? I said, I love the idea. Chris pulled up a video, and we're going to look at doing a grant on this. So to answer your question, we want to put a stove prop in our sprinkler demonstration trailer and take that like to Harbor Senior Apartments. You know, some people, young and old, fall asleep, they forget something's on the stove. And then they can watch and see what this product can do and the potential for how fast the fire goes. And we're going to demonstrate a grease fire, what happens when water's put on grease. So that's what we want to do. We actually want to grant out these range hood suppressant devices. So like $34, $40 per household.
This particular brand's a little more expensive, but it had better images of what it looks like. I think if you click that picture, you have the third one over, or two.
It goes off because of the heat.
Yeah,
If you can I
yep,
just,
exactly.
2 minutes, we'll just show you real fast. Can we do that? Because this is really very dynamic, and this is what we want to do with our educational aspect.
Yeah, it shows it without the micro hood, but they have an option for if you have a microwave over your stove too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Action News at 4 p.m. Coverage you can count on.
A stovetop fire did serious damage to this townhouse. Now there's a new device that could protect you from kitchen fires.
We had very little damage.
Now the device could potentially save lives.
A local fire department is asking apartments to include a kitchen safety device they are convinced will save lives. Channel 2's Linda Stouffer got a look at how it works.
Union City Fire Marshal Larry Knowles lit paper to show us how it works. With that bang, a can drops what could be life-saving fire suppression powder. You can see how it puts out a stovetop fire in the manufacturer's promotional video.
And it puts fire out so quick that it does not even start scorching the cabinets or anything.
Chief Knowles saw it in action this month. These pictures are from a near disaster in a Union City condo kitchen fire. The powder, like baking soda, is everywhere, but no burn marks.
And we had very little damage to the apartment at all.
Manager Rosie Hogan says they snapped the magnets onto every vent hood now at the Ashford Oaks apartments. At $20 each, she's convinced the stovetop fire stop cans save lives and money.
No doubt at all. Thousands of dollars.
What can happen when a kitchen fire gets out of control? Well, look at this townhouse. The fire marshal says about a year ago, a fire on the stovetop quickly ate through the first floor, the second floor, and the roof of this townhome. And to prevent this kind of fire disaster, the fire marshal is asking every apartment complex in Union City to hang these cans in the kitchens, where he says more than 40% of house fires start.
Every fire we've had in these complexes where these have been used, we've had minimal amount of damage done to the property. So yes, they absolutely do work.
In South Fulton County, Linda Stouffer, Channel 2 Action News.
I believe at Old Mill, the insurance company required it,
A shelf life.
7 years.
Yeah.
So that's what we hope to do as far as sprinkler demonstration and stove grease fires.
Sell those like at Menards and stuff like that?
I've only found them on Amazon so far. I haven't looked at Menards to be honest, but they are available online at least. So
It'd be kind of cool to have at our open house.
yeah.
Well, we were trying to do that.
Yeah.
We're
next year, yes, but there's just too much to do in the next week and a half in the burn cell trailer to try and pull off another project and have the proper, lesson plan and the message to go along with it, rather than just light something on fire and watch it go out.
We brought it to Highland Fire's attention because he was at the conference and training with Chris and I. And he said, hey, use my stovetop because we
We can get a hot plate, literally, and a piece of metal over it, just to have it.
If someone's volunteering the time to do it, then by all means, we can do it.
Nope.
If not, it ain't gonna happen. We really wanted to, we don't have the manpower to pull it off. There's too much to finish before everything else. So.
Okay, now another question. Can we run the TV downstairs and run that video?
Potentially.
Derek, can you do that?
I mean,
If somebody wants to carry the TV down the stairs.
Yes.
or any TV.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be that one, but
I say, I've got a small,
I think it's an awesome product.
If you did get a grant, how would you decide?
And, departments have gone back and forth on this, or rentals, because it's all money is exchanged, where residential properties, we feel an obligation to. In my opinion, these would really be essential in apartments, Ridgewood Oaks, that type. Another premium place would be Harbor Senior Apartments. That, to me, would be important. So I'd like not to discriminate. I'd like to do it for all, but it depends on how much we can grant out. Micro grant's only 25 grand. We're not going to get, but it's a start. And I think it's creating awareness. There are tools out there. And I think this is one of the ones that are least known, that's easy to do. But not 10 years ago, nobody even looked at it. So I'm glad.
Okay, moving on, request for payments. Peter, you have a budget adjustment and then.
Okay. So this is the first budget adjustment for this year. We've increased the cost recovery revenue by $3,500, increased grants/donations by $35,000, which majority of that is the FEMA grant that we received in July. And we increased interest by $1,000. And then to offset the increase of revenues, we had an increase in the bulk maintenance by $15,000, and an increase of long-term capital by $24,500, which basically that was the grant one that we spent buying the hose. So it's still a balanced budget, just increased revenues and the increased cost. I don't know if anybody has a question on that.
Where does it show, Peter? That's what
It's all, we're on the revenue and expenditure report.
Page 11.
Page 11,
I'm on there.
14.
Okay, so if you look,
Or page 12.
yeah, if you look under like cost recovery, before, that was only $1,000, now it's $4,500, where it says amended budget, the column that's in the center of the page, 2017-18 is the amended budget. And then it basically, I can put on these, if you guys want to see what the original budget was, I can add another column.
I got it.
Okay, you got it, okay.
I guess what would be easy, what would be nice is when we do these things, maybe highlight the revenue where
The
it
ones
went.
that got changed, oh, yeah.
Yeah, the ones you
Okay.
change,
Okay.
just so it brings our eye right to it.
Okay, that's not a problem.
Can I have a motion for the budget adjustment?
I'll make a motion for the budget adjustment as presented.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion by Beckman and a second by Meridian to approve the budget adjustment of $39,500. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, accounts payable. And we have a motion to pay the bills.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills of $116,969.33.
Do we have a second?
Support.
Is there any discussion?
I have a couple of questions. For dust control, was that for out back? Is that where you did that? And
The side here.
the side? And is that just one-time application, or was that one time? Okay. And then, who will you be using for office supplies? I heard that Chris is closing.
I didn't hear that, but we,
They've been sold, oh, okay.
we use a combination of Office Depot and them already, because
Okay.
some of the stuff you can get cheaper online and order
Yeah.
from them, so.
Okay, thank you.
Fleece and Vandenbroek parking lot, is that just,
Yeah, what I had to do was, the parking lot is getting to an age of replacement, and I wanted to find out what we had and what we needed to do, so that we could do an RFP. The only way is, I had to core that, to find out what kind of base we had. So is it a $20,000 fix or a $50,000 fix, so we can budget for it?
right,
So I asked all around, consensus was you need to have an engineer core that and do an RFP spec, so when the time comes, we can do that. So I think next July, I'll start changing the budget, we'll get estimates, changing the budget, so maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, 4 or 5, not 45, okay. 4 or 5, we have the money to replace that front end there, because it's come apart.
Any other discussion?
we're not old enough to remember what's underneath there.
Yeah, surprisingly, there was a lot of gravel. I was surprised. It's not just a residential. Yeah, there's like 6 inches of gravel down there.
Oh,
I said,
Scott, you
that's
are
good.
over there?
I'm old enough.
Okay, anybody else? Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Financial report, yes?
So on the other 2 pages, we just looked at momentarily, basically none of the revenue, we have very small revenues came in because everything else is put on winter tax bills and the expenses. I don't know, does anybody have any particular line item questions? Basically, it says overall, we spent 25% of our expenses, so right now, we're going into the 3rd quarter, so we're in the 3rd quarter, the 1st quarter of our fiscal year, so we're about right on. We spent a lot of long-term capital that kind of offsets the higher increase, 25%.
Building inspections, what costs are involved when doing a building inspection?
What that line item is are the code books. When we went to the 2015, we inserted those expenses in that.
And then uniform expenses?
Yep, we had planned, we had a 3-year plan, and this year was Class A uniforms for the officers, not the sergeants. So part of that's in there.
And then you already, you've bought most of the small capital expenditures that you had budgeted for the year?
That's correct. We've gone through that allocation, that spreadsheet.
Any other questions, Peter? Thank you for moving on. Thank you, Peter. Moving on, unfinished business, Township IFC effects on the fire department, right?
Yes, I was asked to comprise kind of an effect impact statement on the changes to try to give an idea to the reader, the impact. Chris spent time on it, independently I spent time on it. We got it all done and then we sent it to the attorney. And let me preface it with a couple of comments, if I may. Please keep in mind that what they do in Ada or what they do in Holland is different from here. Okay? 84% of our fires are residential. That's data backed. 84% of our fires are residential. What I try to do is preserve the integrity of the fire code and the safety to all. That's always been the utmost concern. We've heard from Saugatuck, from Douglas, we've heard from the building official, we've heard from the state fire marshal, Ron Fire retired. We've heard from the firefighters, from me. We've heard from actually 2 residents that had a fire. Most recently, the one who commented was Mr. Bernstein. So we actually had an engineer who's a township resident comment as well. And we understand that's one perspective or one side, and that the people that wanted to change it had their beliefs on what they were doing. So, going through the fire code change, just a comment actually was from the attorney, unclear why the township chose to adopt and utilize the 2012. I can't speak for the township. I think they wanted to focus on the 12 and then codify and go into the 15. As you know, we're all in the 15 code. So, do I scroll up on this, Eric?
Yeah, you can go forward, then it goes to the next portion. Yeah, there you go.
One of the confusing things about the fire code is that it's not applicable to the interior of a dwelling. The International Fire Code is only applicable to the outside. There are 3 things: address, access roads, and water supply. Now, we have the Michigan Building Code and the Michigan Residential Code. It's the residential that's applicable. They have international. Michigan just has some amendments, but they mirror one another. The language says International Residential Code is essentially the same. International Residential Code does not have any provisions to regulate design and construction of emergency access to and community fire protection for residential developments. That's where the IFC excels. So, these specific requirements of the IFC are applicable. They include design and construction that provide the necessary emergency access and fire protection for residential developments. So what does this all mean? As a result of the change and the amendments, the following impacts may be anticipated. Okay? Amendments that we can...
Greg,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
I'm really glad to see all of this and you're going through it, but, you know, big but. I sent a note to you the Tuesday after our last fire board meeting, so it's been a month, asking for this, the concerns. In the township, I felt what would be logical and reasonable was the township respond in writing to these concerns, so that we're not just getting your interpretation.
Well,
and the board, I guess we could all go through this, but it would be far better to have the township responses at the same time, so that we're not going back and forth, and this is the first time I've seen this. And we asked for it a month ago.
Well, I
Before
respect
we were
that.
going to have a joint meeting.
I respect that, Roy. However, I just got it back from the attorney Sunday. I worked on a lot of this on my own time to get it to this board, and I was asked,
Why
you
don't
know,
we
Right.
present this in writing as it is to the township?
It's up to the board.
And then expect an answer, obviously prior to our next board meeting, so that we can have a side by side on this, because there are answers to a lot of these. I don't have them, but our zoning administrator better have them. Now, don't laugh.
Well,
When you sit down with our zoning administrator, a lot of this seems to be misunderstanding or whatever.
And try to get
We
both
did
sides
this for
together.
we did
this is a public meeting,
we did this
do
for
not
9
comment.
months. Back and forth.
You know, I
At one
assume
point,
since they
we
wrote
were in
it, that
agreement.
they wrote it, that they know what the impact was. You know,
Well-
but whatever the board wants to do, I don't have any
I
problem
would
with it.
propose that to the board.
This goes back to, let's get those other 3 people that voted against, you know, or voted for the
Yeah.
thing, and show them, I mean, this is not gonna do us any good here. I mean, I thank you for the information, it's important, but we're just, what are we doing? Let's get something resolved. Let's get together and look at this stuff, or have them respond to it, and what they respond to, we go back to it.
Okay, we asked them to have a meeting with us on September 11th. We never even got a response.
Let me clarify that. I stated in our email to our chief, and copied you, that well before that meeting, we would need to have in writing what the concerns are. So it's clarified what we need to talk about. And I brought a copy of the email.
I don't remember.
It didn't happen. It's happened now. I can understand why maybe it didn't happen. There's a lot of work to do what Greg has done. But this is the first time that something is in writing with all the concerns. And I gotta bring up again, I'm sure, had told us at one point that you were cool with what we were doing with a couple of minor modifications. And now all of a sudden it's
Oh, wait
It's
a
not
minute, wait a minute.
acceptable.
I was,
I know.
you know,
It's all verbal.
I've done probably 14 or 15 revisions, Roy. I never tried to give any impression or say that I was okay with changing 102.5 or 111. That's,
We have a very different impression. And that's what's the problem with verbal, this going back and forth. And I tried to pin it down by saying, put this as you have, in writing. Now we have something concrete for the township to respond, and if we can't properly respond, if we screwed up, then we have to fix it. But with Eric, to go through this like tonight doesn't accomplish anything. Everybody can read it, but you're giving your impassioned view, but there's another side to this.
We sat here with Phillips and Cushion and went over everything, and they agreed to stuff, and Greg agreed to stuff.
Right.
Then you turned around and did change the
No,
whole
we
thing as a
didn't.
board. Yes,
No,
you
we
did.
didn't.
You most certainly did.
That's where we're in trouble.
We sat here and discussed,
And Steve
Correct,
Cushion
correct.
and John Phillips.
Correct?
Correct.
okay,
And John
and then they
Phillips-
changed it all at the meeting.
John Phillips and Steve Cushion did not make anything like.
Who did it then?
Nobody did it.
Somebody did.
Well, there were some things said and agreed to at that meeting that were changed, Roy. I
Yeah.
have to agree with Scott there.
They were changed.
They were asked, Greg asked for changes, and they were made.
Then Greg should be happy with everything, and he's not.
That's why I'm so confused.
Yeah,
They weren't,
agree.
they weren't changed.
one of the examples, sir, if I may respond to your comment, is I specifically asked if we could take out the language about the parent and child parcels. Steve said, he didn't say no, he didn't say, let me see what I can do with that.
And he did.
No one understands that. But if I can offer, let's move on. What do we need to do? If you want me to meet with somebody, tell me what you want me to do.
What we need is, for this, what you've done is a very good piece of work. is to go, send it digitally over to the township, to Steve, and he is expecting to get something. He didn't know it would be done tonight, but he's expecting that. And he's got an obligation by our board and by me and anybody else, John Phillips, et cetera, to answer that in detail and respond to it. We've been verbally going back and forth on this. It's, to me, the way to end it, Greg, is to put this in front of the township and have us defend it.
Okay.
And if we're wrong, we're wrong.
No, I'll be glad to send that to him if that's okay with the board.
I don't see what the board can accomplish tonight other than, you know,
I thought the board wanted to understand the impact difference, but,
well,
you know, if you don't want to,
if the board wants to, yes, the board can read this and feel, wow, there's a big impact. But there could be logical explanations that there isn't a big impact. And if we're wrong, that I, as one member of the board, would say we're wrong, and it's got to be fixed.
When we were at the township meeting, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, your last one, when this came up, when the meeting came up, when we requested a joint meeting, both Brad and Lori, and, you know, I'm sorry, but they both rolled their eyes. And you get the distinct impression that they think this is over with.
That I can't speak for any other board member but myself.
And I understand that.
But in working with Steve Cushing and our township manager, the way to fix this is to get it in writing, which you've done. So we've made a big step forward.
I did it
And you
as
got,
fast as I
you went
could.
through
I don't-
all this effort. I'm not criticizing at this point.
No, I feel like no matter what I do with this, it reverts back to I'm doing
And then
something
there are
wrong.
people on the other side that feel the same way. And no matter what we've done, it's put in the press as endangering the public, et cetera, et cetera. And this has been played out in the press, way beyond what it should have been.
So with
I
board
would
approval,
recommend that,
I'll send it to,
that it go to the board.
Send it to township board.
Okay, but we need a meeting with the township board. We need a face-to-face meeting.
First, we have to get the township's response.
Why can't they respond at a meeting? If we
Right.
talk to the motion,
Well, I
once they
would
have a
think,
workshop.
I would hope that Greg would have chance before any such meeting to look at what the response is, rather than being, just like we are caught tonight with the first look at it.
I would hope that they would all and go over, you know, these concerns and address them. Not just,
the first step was to send it to Steve, right?
Right, and the second step, if, I understand the board asked for a joint meeting. I can't call
And
it
I
a
understand
meeting.
that.
I personally go on record as saying I certainly would attend a joint meeting. And I can't speak for any other board member.
I've asked Doug Lane personally, and he said, sure, let me know when it is.
All right, so we got three.
Maybe.
Yeah,
No,
well, that's
John
for
Phillips,
sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I
can
know
speak
John
for
will.
And if
And
Doug
the rest
Lane
of them I
has,
don't
I
know.
haven't asked Doug Lane, I stayed out of this as far as trying to politic with various board members.
I wasn't politicking, I was just saying,
Well, you were
we
right.
need to
Right.
sit down.
Thank
This
you.
is
I'm glad
ridiculous.
you did that. We need more of that.
Is it okay then with the board to send the cost recovery commentary to it at the same time?
Yes. Oh,
Sure. That's good with everybody?
Absolutely.
We'll do that.
And then we'll work on trying to get this meeting together. I will certainly communicate with John Phillips, who is the one who calls any special meeting.
I think you copied John Phillips on any correspondence with Steve also.
All right.
Just for a minute
Got it
clarification.
in writing, and that's great. It
Yeah,
really is.
this is
But I
what
don't
we
think
need.
well, thank you.
I think Scott requested to send it to the whole board, and somebody else requested to send it to Steve, so just for minutes, who is it? Who do you want it to
I
go
think
to,
it
the whole
ought-
board, or?
I think it should go just to Steve, because you're sending it to the whole board, you're kind of getting into open meeting stuff again.
Well, I
No,
think
you're
Steve
not.
and John.
Steve and John, is it okay with Steve and John?
Steve and John.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then John can do what he wants
Right.
with it, with the board.
No, this is just material, this doesn't go into the open meetings act.
Okay.
You just, this is material that
So
we're
Steve
sending to
Cushion
the
and
town.
John Phillips.
Okay.
and all this was done by our attorney.
No. It was, he reviewed it. He had very few,
Yeah.
you're welcome, very few things that he put in there. He actually said his comment was it was very well done. We know the code.
So then is it appropriate then to ask Steve and John, when you're sending this information to them, after they've had an opportunity to review it, whatever time you want to put on, 30 days or what, less, whatever, I hate to put a time limit on it, but ask them that we do want to have a joint workshop to further the discussion.
Yes, after we've had a chance to review it and get our comments in writing, and then have a workshop.
Don't you want your board to have this?
Well, let John pass
It's
that.
up to,
Well, yeah, okay, well, that's.
So the suggestion for a workshop,
that's part of his job.
You put a deadline on that, don't you?
Yeah.
No, I
They
agree.
could drag it out for 2 months. We gotta get this done. Could you ask them to do it in a week or two, or
Yeah.
I think 30 days is too long.
Oh, I do too, way too much.
Let's just be
I do
done
too.
with this.
But I don't know
Yeah,
how long
but
it takes
remember
to get
what-
to an attorney and review.
We're
And
we're all volunteers, and we all have
and
jobs.
then October,
so-
their board meeting's October 4th.
Yeah.
We're gonna be working day and night to get the open house done, so I really ask you not to make me get this done by the 4th. I don't know how much more you want me to do.
No, that's,
No.
I don't think it's, hey, if we're gonna do it right, let's take our time to do it right.
On record that it's being sent, you've done your share here now, the concerns, it's being looked at by the township, the fire district attorney, and now the township is obligated to respond in writing to this and have it available before a joint meeting, so we have a chance to look at both of this, and we know what we want to talk about.
We can do that.
Okay.
Okay, is it all right to continue?
And county radio system update.
So, as you know, we're getting a new radio system, and there were 3 chiefs asked to do the testing on the system for performance and acceptance, which is a big payout, millions of dollars type thing. So there was the west side, middle, and the east side. This represents tiles. Each grid is a half mile. In downtown Saugatuck, it would be a quarter mile. So we had to do performance testing and had to be witnessed by 3 people within a vehicle. I was the west side, Chief Haverdink was the center, and Chief Weber was on the east side. So the system had to be performance tested, and the quality had to be recorded with a computer. So this just shows the areas we were testing at one point, and they did not have the lakeshore on there because they met their coverage guarantee without the lakeshore. And we were able to convince them that we needed to test the lakeshore, which was another day. So each one of those tiles, by the time we were done, everything was tested. Everything was green, with one exception. At the northeast corner, you might see a little red dot up there. There was a failure there. To give you an example of comparison, it was the consultant, which was paid about $300,000 to be part of this, the Motorola, who hired a test company, and then we represented the county. I did. Then what happened was, we had to do this testing in a car, and every tile had to be green. If not, Motorola has to rectify that problem. So we were able to achieve that on that grid number 1, which is the west side. They're working on a solution to the one problem up there where that arrow is. But normally they have 2,000, maybe 2,300 tiles. Elgin County is the biggest they've ever done. It was over 3,400 tiles. So a huge area. We even had to go test in Elgin County woods to make sure it worked. And then we even got to test it out on the lake, which was great. We also tested it on the dunes with the mule. We tested grass cup. A lot of the weak areas, downtown Hamilton had no coverage with a pager. So all met the criteria, so everyone was pretty happy with that. And that's radio testing. Portables is not the pager testing. So this is a real significant timeline, and we're thinking that next month, October 1st, law will be put on the radio system, and then November 1st, fire will be on the radio system.
October 9th, it's the day after Columbus Day for law, though, just as a correction.
Thank you, thank you. So it looks crazy, but it's huge because the performance guarantee is everyone's kind of holding pins and needles, because engineering-wise, it looked great, but you don't know if you're going to get that radio contact. As you know, this is a Michigan Public Safety Communication System. We are the missing link for the northern part, eastern.
So what about the blank areas?
That was just at a point, we were like on day 3. We were supposed to take 9 days to do the testing, and we got it done in 4 days. We're supposed to 150 tiles a day each group, and we were doing 300. It went well. I had a guy who spoke 10 words in English, so that was interesting. But very professional, very just great group to work with. But it was long. It was, you know, for me, it was 11-hour days. It was a long day, but we got it done.
So I think the county and this fire department owes Greg a huge thank you. This was a huge project this has been going on for more than a year. I've worked with Greg extensively on the 911 board. He was a huge influence on the radios and all the improvements that were made to this county. We would be back in the Stone Age if it hadn't been for him. Going out, getting equipment, testing it, proving people wrong. He did a fine, fine job, and he should be commended for his work on this.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yep, it's going to be a great system. We're looking forward to having it done.
When is it expected to be totally done?
You know, probably December. There's going to be some issues and
Glitches
things.
and all the normal stuff.
I mean, just to train a trainer to train them to use the radios is 40 hours. That's what we're running next week. Train the trainer, and each firefighter has to do 8 hours of training. 8 hours of training. Everyone, or you can't be on the radio system. That's challenging for volunteer fire departments. So they're struggling with that. And that's a state requirement, not Allen County.
Everybody on the department has to be trained.
Everybody.
It doesn't seem like it would be 8 hours to learn how to use the radio.
Yeah, we're learning the same thing. It's non-negotiable. All right, thank you for bearing with me on that. Next is the Blue Star Trail. We're on track. We plan to get reimbursed soon. There was some discussion that an email that they wanted to open up the trail, and I had heard through somebody else that the engineer was hoping the fire department would allow the trail to be open. I'm not touching that. I have nothing to do with allowing a trail to be open. There's no markings in place in front of the fire department. I'm not going to put the fire department in a liability position by saying yes. I actually turned it over to the attorney. So people are using it, and they just go around the barricades, but I don't want to go on record saying go ahead and use it. I have nothing to do with it. So that's where we're at.
And we'll skip cost recovery.
Just a reminder, the open house is Sunday, October 1st from noon to 3. Hope to see you there.
Okay, moving on to new business, future lightweight construction training for the fire board.
One of the things, because this whole fire code thing has been, actually the state fire marshal, retired fire marshal, approached me on this in Lansing, and they thought it would be real beneficial for the fire board for Ron Farr to do a presentation to the fire board, and he can shorten it, but it's still an hour. So I'm asking the board's permission to have that done, whether you want to do it at a board meeting, which I would recommend, or you want it done in a workshop. I think it would be very insightful to see how fast the houses are burning up for lightweight construction.
So can we have some discussion on this? What would you like? Pleasure.
At a board meeting, you know, we're having a special workshop.
Okay.
Our board meetings are lasting quite a long time to begin with. I don't know.
How long are we talking about?
He thought about it, thought an hour.
Oh,
Well, could you skip, no offense, the chief comments 1 month or anything? So that
Yeah.
it
We could
works and
push-
Just pass the
Yeah,
packet?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Just
we could
raise the
push
shorten the meeting maybe.
Yeah, we
Oh, I know, when Jim was here, we did it in about 45 minutes and we were gone when I ran it.
Come on up here. Have a ball.
So if we shorten the agenda, is that okay with the board?
That's
Yes.
fine.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution.
This is an updated resolution that's in your packet. All this does is allow us to have the purchasing power, if approved, to purchase stuff at a government surplus, for example, a Coast Guard boat, like we've done before, a pump. And it was old, it was under John's name, so we had to redo it.
I was gonna say, I never remember signing this with John. He bought everything.
And it's in there.
Is there?
There's one in the file from, I can't remember who signed it, but it's way old.
Way before me.
Yeah, I've got it on the desk, I'll find it for
My
you.
dad or
I move we
Yeah.
approve the federal,
Dr. Rabel.
I move we approve federal surplus property program resolution as presented.
I support.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Fire district photographer.
Yeah, kind of a, you know, do you guys want to talk about this at all? What would you like to see? What changes, what you would like?
No, from my standpoint is, I didn't know we had one. And I kind of got, all of a sudden, when Karen's
Yeah.
a great girl, does great work, but all of a sudden she's on the payroll. So I was kind of blindsided, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I thought something like that would have gone to the board for approval as a staff.
Didn't we do that? Didn't we?
I don't think so.
Well,
I know we discussed it.
I've never asked for approval from the board to really assign sergeants or CRR people or anything, but, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, there was a miscommunication on that.
No,
Really,
but
she
you
was
come
on
to,
scene. She
you
was on
come to the
scene.
board to hire people,
Hmm.
always for approval.
Well, she's just strictly, you know, well, I guess I'm
Freelance,
confused.
freelance.
I'm confused on
Is there-
that. She
is
comes
there-
to scenes, you know, document the scenes,
Yeah.
what we
Is there a
have, like,
budget item on this?
I'm sorry.
Where is it in the budget?
Well, it's under operational wages.
Yeah. But she's a contractor. No.
Well, she's, right, she's listed on our roster, she's one of the personnel.
Oh.
She's listed on the roster, she's not a contractor at this point. If you want to make her a contractor, we can
No, I
change
think,
that.
don't get me wrong, I
Yeah,
think she
no,
does good
yeah,
work,
yeah.
and I think you need it. I mean, we need to document things, and a picture's worth 1,000 words,
Well,
so
everyone's kind
I
of.
think
wanting
it's
to
a
show
good
the
thing.
Public what we do, because
Right.
there was nothing to hide, that's what we're trying to do. And, you know, Erin started this, and you can't really compare Erin to anyone, because she does an impeccable job.
Are there ground rules, I guess, is what?
We're working on,
Not
we
every
have,
fire, I assume.
yeah,
That's
we-
safe, not safe to assume.
we have photo policies now, and we have a new company that we're dealing with, so we have to amend some of it. For example, you know, it all says it has to be our equipment. I'm not gonna buy $2,000, $3,000 worth of photo equipment, it's her equipment. So who has the copyright on that? So we're working through some of those things. The end product's not supposed to end up on Facebook. You know, it's okay to be on the website. Erin knows, because she's done this a lot, she's not allowed to photograph a face of a patient, you know? and you can't stop kind of the media, but she's not media, she works for us, she's allowed in the warm zone. At the Pinnacle Fire in Fenville, you know, Erin was allowed in a closer proximity as approved by 4 of the fire chiefs, whereas the media was on the cold side.
Now, what about liabilities and things like that in the warm zone and things like that?
Right, that's why she's on our roster for workers' comp.
And we're videoing meetings.
We don't have to, we just kind of,
I don't know.
yeah, we
Yeah,
were
we've
just kind
never
of doing
discussed
that,
it.
you know, as a matter of just making sure we knew what happened because the minutes were so vague on that. And that's not just here, that's a lot of places, not singling out the fire
Yeah.
department. And, you know, we kind of learned that from some other
Well, I'll
municipalities.
tell you a little
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
I can't argue against doing this because I'm trying to get the township to do it.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
We just thought it was helpful
Talk
to
about
remember
us.
who said
That's
what.
what it's about.
but we don't pay Erin to video meetings. Erin does that on her own, and you can video any public meeting.
Right, okay. That's a great clarification.
And I did ask for permission from Brad at the township meeting.
Yeah.
If it's, I don't know if it's okay to speak, I'm sorry.
Certainly we would give it, I can't, you know.
I asked his permission, but I was not there as a fire board employee. I was there as a Saugatuck City
I didn't
resident.
think so, but thanks for it.
Mhm.
But I apologize for not communicating that better to the board. I could have done a better job with that.
I guess one of the things, if we're gonna set something like that up, we probably should have ground rules and things like that too.
What happens now with what you record, Erin?
Well, right now, as Greg was saying, we've started working on a policy, and so we're working on the really finite details of what happens.
But this is an open board meeting, so you can come into any open board meeting.
Yeah, this meeting, because I'm not here as a part of the fire department, I mean, to be blunt, you have no say over what I do with the video. I haven't done anything with it, but I wanted to have it if I want to build the story at some point, frankly. As a citizen, not as an employee of the fire department, I'm concerned about what's going on. And I think that a lot of people really don't understand the granular level of details. And so if I can help with that as an educational tool, not as a shine a spotlight on someone to look bad, but as a, here's what the issue here is, you know, that's kind of where I'm coming from as the public recording meetings. But we're working on a policy. Any photo that I take when I'm working for the fire department has to comply with the standards of public accountability or access or whatever, it's all FOIA-able. So we're working on that in the policy. What I would suggest is if you guys have thoughts about what you want that policy to say or not say, when I go, when I don't go, you know, right now I'm going by my judgment. I go to fires if they're big enough for more than one truck to go to, basically. I don't go to medical calls. I'll go occasionally to a big highway accident, like where we have the helicopter land. But I sort of put those parameters somewhat around myself, working with the chief and Chris and anybody else. But I'd love your feedback, because that's something I'm going to be working on just as soon as I finish Halloween.
Not to extend this, but do we have a gray area here, Erin, with you're on the roster, but you're here as an individual?
Right.
But it's crossing,
Yes.
you know, it's waving in and out.
Yes. And I do think that that's something that we should address, because working for the fire department shouldn't limit what I can do in my time. But if I need to identify at a meeting and say, I'm here as public, I'm not representing the fire department, I have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever.
That goes back to, you know, these meetings, if we wanted FOIA-able, probably had to be fire department equipment.
Well, that's one of the things I'm running into, you know, when, like, Erin brought it up to me, you know, if they FOIA it and they FOIA her own personal computer, we can't, you know, that puts us in a bad position, it's not our equipment.
That's a good point.
That's why I disallowed all people who had their own computers here after what happened in Allegan. We're not doing that anymore. We either have our own computer within the fire department or you don't use your computer. So she's editing this stuff at home, so that's what I'm working through.
As long as
That makes
we don't-
sense?
Yes.
Yeah, we just,
I do have a hard drive that's the fire department's that gets any photo I take backed up as is before I edit it. But I do use my personal computer to do the editing and posting and whatnot. If I'm not mistaken, we approved not too long ago quite a bit of money for cameras too. So we wouldn't have liability at fires and pictures of fires on each of the firefighters' uniforms,
I think
belts.
the cameras were
flags.
thermal imager cameras.
No, she's talking about the dash camera project.
dash camera.
That, total, yeah, that's a
We're
lot
gonna have
different.
photos of these fires regardless.
Well, no.
Well, it depends if the truck is in a position of showing the scene. We can't always do that.
And those cameras were designed to protect us from liability while approaching intersections and stuff like that if you're involved in a vehicular crash, not on scene. That way, if you're involved, somebody blows a red light and you hit them, at least it shows that you had the green when you T-boned them, type thing is what those cameras, or that you blew the red
Or
light.
that you did the red light.
Yeah. That hopefully will not be the case.
Okay, let's move on to the tourniquet on person program.
So, thanks for putting this on the agenda, Chris.
No, thank you.
At my job in Kalamazoo, I'm part of the 5th District Medical Response Coalition, which encompasses the 9 counties of Southwest Washington. And there's a project that we started, that we launched in August that affects Allegan County and here in the Saugatuck Douglas area. If you could go to the website tourniquetsaves.com, it'll help better to explain this. I'll just give you a little background. 2 years ago, the Med School at Western and the 5th District MRC, they purchased through Homeland Security funds approximately 2,000 tourniquet and Israeli dressing hemorrhage kits to provide to every single police officer in Southwest Michigan, which is about 1,800 cops.
T-O-U-R, Eric.
What's that?
We're trying to get
How to spell
it.
tourniquet?
Yeah.
T-O-U-R-N-I-Q-U-I-E-T. Even your phone doesn't know that one. It makes it into tourniquet.
I can't read the rest of this far away.
Tourniquet. So it's the 5th District bought these 2,000 kits, and what we found is many of them are in a locker or they're in someone's pickup truck, and they're in the garage, they're at a hunting cabin, they're in a backpack, they're not in the patrol car where they were intended to be. Some departments are more aggressive than others. Berrien County is really good. Other counties are not. And over this last year in January, one of my colleagues that works for the Kent County Sheriff's Department, I noticed that he was wearing one of these tourniquets. And if you could go to the tourniquet use form, or rather individual request, and then just scroll down, it'll show a picture of what, that's the tourniquet that we're talking. So essentially, someone has an arterial bleed, or they've been shot by the police, or they've been in a major car crash and one of their arteries are bleeding. You have 3 minutes until you're dead and there's no recovery, because you're going to bleed out. I'm going to show you a video where that will bring all of this to life. So yeah, just keep scrolling down. It'll show these tourniquets. So those are the holsters that we wanted to put on the gun belts of all of these police officers that are out there, so they have these tourniquets on their person, tourniquet on person. Case in point, Scott Flaheim was shot and killed just south of here. He worked for Grand Haven back in '94. He was shot through the back window of a suspect vehicle from an escapee from the Ottawa County Jail. He was shot in the femoral artery and bled out. This tourniquet wasn't even invented until the Iraq and the Afghanistan wars, where it was proven really battle-proven and really effective. So we pushed these things out there 2 years ago and did a little poll, and we found that they vanished for the most part. They're not out there and they're not being used. So my colleague up there in Kent County, Deputy Mars, I noticed, hey, you've got one of these tourniquets on your belt. He's like, oh, it's the coolest thing. Our department doesn't do it, but I started it. I've already put on 2 this year. Like, you're kidding me. The guy died, but he impaled himself from a motorcycle crash onto a bike rack at over 100 miles an hour on 131. but he was able to apply 2 tourniquets. More recently, about a month ago, he was involved in a gunfight with a suspect who was trying to kill him off of Division Street near 28th. Shot him in the arm and severed his brachial artery. The guy ran about 50 feet and dropped from blood loss. So he's in a ditch in the water underneath Division Street. And again, Brandon had the tourniquet on him. The guy's screaming for, save my life, I'm thirsty, I can't breathe. Wrapped the tourniquet on his arm, saved his life. So he gets to live, the rest of his life, hopefully in prison for trying to murder a police officer. But had Brandon not taken his own initiative and had this tourniquet on his person, this guy probably would have died. So we felt that it was important to get the tourniquets out of the wall lockers, out of the cars, and onto the officers themselves. But we also expanded it to fire and EMS and ambulance personnel, first responders. So before I go on, I want to show you a video. It's graphic, and there's a lot of swearing. There's some F-bombs. So it's real. It's what happens. But it's going to bring to life what this looks like, and then you'll realize, wow, that makes sense why you're doing this. So just scroll down on this page and click on, I'll just go up a bit,
It's the 4-officer one, isn't it?
Yeah, right there, 4 officers. So if you go down, no, this is not it, reverse, back.
Oh, sorry.
We want the Las Vegas, so all the way down, right there. And then just make it big screen, but just pause it before we start. You can make it large screen. So this is Las Vegas Police Department, and then just hit pause. There you go. But first of all, I want to caveat this because I'm a trainer for the Police Academy. We don't train cops to swear like what happened here. It's combat, things happen. But this officer involved in the shooting has a tourniquet in his boot. He took the initiative to carry it out himself. And it shows the effectiveness of having this on your person. So you go ahead and play. The volume will kick on here momentarily. So this guy had just shot a female, and then he shot at the police. I guess he was fleeing.
That's how the cops are there. Go slow and don't hit those fucking doors. Oh, they're gonna run. Get on the fucking ground! Get on the ground now! Don't move! Don't you move! Fucking move! Stop pushing down! Get your hands up now! Here! Watch her! Watch her! Watch her! I'm dying! I'm dying!
So I want you to focus on his lower left leg, and you'll see the type of blood we're talking about.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh shit! I'm dying! Hello! Alright. Hey! Stop! Oh, dying, sir. I'm working on it! I'm working on it! Oh my God, right!
So that's arterial bleeding, where it's just
I'm
gushing
working on it!
out.
I get the water first!
He's already screaming for water because he's so thirsty. But if you don't stop that, there's no recovery. There's no running back to the car to get this out of the vehicle.
Oh my God! Sir, please!
And this will just show another view. You can pause it at this point. So that's what we're trying to do, is get the tourniquets on the officers, on the first responders, so that they can actually save lives in less than 3 minutes. So the partner organizations with this is the Eric Zapata Foundation, which is out of Kalamazoo Public Safety. Eric Zapata, sadly, was my partner. He was killed, shot and killed on April 18th, 2011 in the 1200 block at Hayes Park. And since then, this foundation has been used to raise funds for officer training, which they have been doing pretty good in the past. They also do scholarships for academy students at Valley and at Grand Rapids Community College. So this year, they wanted to do something for all of the officers in the 9-county area, and then to expand it out. So the Zapata Foundation has purchased over 500 of these tourniquet holsters, and up to date, they've purchased 423 since this launched. 423 orders, including some here for the fire department. They have 23 trainers. Chris Mannels attended the first class. The fire department that's hosting the training is Oshtemo Fire Department. And they have not only shown the trainers how to conduct the training within their own department, but how to make bleeding simulators that replicate that. And we knew Chris was all about hands-on. So it won't be for this open house, but maybe next year we'll have tourniquet bleeding simulators that are gushing.
I'm looking forward to it.
We won't have to order as much food.
You'll see that it's not as easy as it looks.
Less food.
Make sure it's nice and red.
No. So we thought, okay, where can we, how is this, critical to a first responder agency? But it works perfectly for, just to put these on your vests or to put on your uniform holsters for the duty officers that are on duty, just like an AED. You've only got minutes to save a life. When you've got arterial bleeding, it's the same thing. The police department here, Chief Kent, he knows about it. They haven't signed up yet, but they're aware. There's also a reporting aspect, and that's where the WMed comes in, is we're going to be tracking all of the tourniquet use in the 9 counties. So we'll know how it was applied, where it was kept, whether the person survived or not. And it's rare that it's a police-involved shooting like this. It's going to be typically a personal injury accident. Or what's happening in Kalamazoo every week, sadly, it's an attempt suicide with an edged weapon. That's what people are getting tourniquets on almost weekly in the city for that. But we wanted the agencies to have that ability. So that's what's happening as far as the 5th District. Saugatuck Fire was the first fire department to sign up for it, but I'll tell you who the other folks are that are doing this. The next one was St. Joe Public Safety, Prairieville Township Police, Berry Township, Lawton Village Police, Saugatuck Township Fire, Calhoun County Sheriff's Department, Benton Harbor Public Safety, City of Marshall, Covert Township Police, Lawton Quick Response Team, Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Department, Cass County Sheriff's Department, Portage Department of Public Safety, Lincoln Township, Buchanan, and then tonight Covert Township Police Department just ordered 7. So tell your friends in Allegheny
Well, how are you
County.
going to know they don't just hide them away like last time?
Well, they're not supposed to.
How
There's
can you
an-
hold them accountable somehow?
I signed something saying we wouldn't, when
That's
we
the
signed
yeah,
up.
they've signed a contract saying that they would really do this. The other project is I'm building a hemorrhage training trailer, similar to the sprinkler trainer. So we're going to go around and do spot inspections as big medical control for the other areas to say, okay, we're coming in for tourniquet testing, like hose testing. Send us 10 people off the street, run them through here, get qualified, MCOL says you're good to go, and go save lives. So it's kind of cool. It's something local that's happening here, but it's like the radio system. There's a lot of big picture stuff that happens that Saugatuck's involved in, and that's one of them. Yeah.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, thanks for letting me
Program.
share that.
Okay, the Ralph Troutman fundraiser open house request.
Just a notice, we were asked to attend. Ralph Troutman Jr. has, unfortunately, has bladder cancer, told it's curable. They're doing an event Sunday from 12:30 to 4 at the Cut Above Events Center, 12:30 to 4. Ralph was a long time on the fire department and resident of Saugatuck City, and just a good all-around guy. And we're doing bucks for bladders and very unique fundraisers. So we have a couple of us have school this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, but there are people that volunteer to go up there. Want to let you know about that.
Cut Above is out on the Blue Star Highway across from the Lake Shore Conference Center.
He must be a good guy. He married a Beckman.
He seems to be doing all right, he's home from the surgery.
Yeah, I heard, yeah.
Okay, there is no correspondence. Is there?
No, ma'am.
Okay, moving on to public comment. Keep your comments respectful, limit them to 3 minutes.
I guess
Take
that's
the
me.
podium.
Is that me? I can talk now?
Please take the podium.
All right. Well, you know, I was here before, and I've been at this for quite some time. And, you know, I like the way that you look through the budget a little bit and say, hey, this is what that's got to be, and that you guys want to make things right, like get together with the township. And, you know, I see a little bit, looks like, you know, good people that want to have some progress and stuff like that. But this Amity Lane thing that I had here, you know, I asked for a hearing and stuff, and I do have to apologize. I don't get my mail. Sometimes I have 5 local observers in my mailbox when I get it. The mailman puts the flag up so I can get my mail out of there, but there was a couple registered letters or something that I went to the post office and they got sent back, and I'm not sure. It's from, I requested a FOIA here and stuff, and maybe that's what one was and stuff. When they investigated this thing, it was a fire there in the evening, and then the next morning when Greg came, it's all basically in here. I'm going to give you this. You know, the fire report and the police report didn't have anything to do with the findings of what went on there. And I have in here, I have a couple of, from the kid that was helping me, he has his own little story here. He wrote it out, basically what happened there. And then one of the letters that I sent you guys with what happened there, I showed the treasurer there, Bob Harris, showed the letter to him, and he has in here signed it and said that everything he thought went according to what I said in here. So I'm just gonna, kind of to the end, you know, I can't hardly complain too much more, I guess. It doesn't seem like it goes very far, but, you know, it says in here that they want you to be treated with respect, and his actions were justified and unable to unsubstantiate your allegation in this case. And in my part there, I said I have a couple of witnesses. Both of those witnesses were never contacted over this to find out what really happened. Anyways, I have a letter from the kid in here, and his phone number's on there. I have Bob Harris that wrote down here that basically what happened there happened. So I'd like to give that to you guys to take a look at that and kind of go over that. You know, because I don't think that, and I should be treated the way that I was treated in front of, you know, my clients that I'm doing work for, that I plowed snow for the last 20-some years. And I don't think, you know, it wasn't right. So I'd like you to look at that, look at those letters that came from there, and hopefully, you know, you look that over. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other public comment? Chris?
I wrote it out, so I don't think I guess I'm just a little disappointed that after all the hard work and after we put into another effect on the fire district document, it wasn't discussed. Chief Janik and myself have worked on several of these documents that were provided, our comments to the township, contrary to what I understood Roy saying, and they were clearly never read by the township or its staff. I'm hopeful that we didn't waste our time on yet another document that was ignored by both the township board and the township staff. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? Okay, board comments?
I will bring up the conflict of interest discussion that we've brought up in the past, and we tabled it. I feel that with all this going on back and forth, that using the same attorney as the city in this situation is not a good idea. The definition is a situation in which internal auditor, who is in a position of trust, has a competing professional or personal interest. Such competing interests can make it difficult to fulfill his or her duties impartially. This is the key. A conflict of interest exists even if no unethical or improper act results. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying Jeff has done anything unethical, or I just don't like the fact that we are using the same attorney in this whole mess. It's just my 2 cents, and you can do with it whatever you want.
I know Jeff has bailed us out of a lot of stuff, he's straightened us up a lot of things, and I don't have a problem with him being here.
Would it make sense to have a couple of board members, not me, but look into it a little further and then just get some further discussion? Does that make any sense of it? I don't know how you get it.
And I agree with Scott. Jeff has done a phenomenal job for us. He always has. It's just, you know, now we keep on dragging this cost recovery thing out. We got to get city's opinions. Don't feel comfortable. I'll leave it at that.
I just agree with that, so.
You
We
agree or
face this
you
issue
agree or
with the township.
disagree?
I agree.
Oh, okay.
It's not like you said
It
disagree.
did sound like
It did sound like that.
I agree, but, no, we went through this with the township a number of years ago. We were having issues with Lake Town, and the attorney that represented us represented both. And in spite of him saying, well, I can treat this fairly, and now we've got an issue where the city's attorney is giving opinions to the fire board, and the city has an issue with the township, and it's the same attorney. There's just got to be a conflict there.
Are we contracted with our current attorney? Is that how that works? That seems to make sense to have a different attorney that's fair and impartial, that's not involved in either of the entities. Like a judge that's got a conflict with, precludes himself or herself.
Well, I'm sure that if,
But I don't know.
Jeff felt
history or
he had a
background.
conflict, he would.
Ron Bolsche felt the same way. I can understand that. We were a client, and he worked for us for years, but we said, you gotta make a choice.
Well, I'm really sorry. Oh, this is board comments.
No, go ahead.
I'm really sorry to hear this.
Well, it's not a personal.
No, there's nothing
No, I'm not.
It's not personal with
not
Jeff
personal.
or.
It's just, I don't know where you draw the line. Scott Smith was used by the Saugatuck City, and yet he worked for the township. So I guess that, that's not fair. I know that there are not a lot of attorneys that know the fire code, and Jeff Sluggett has the pulse of the community. If you saw his billing, I think you'd feel differently. He's very price sensitive. We don't involve the attorney that much. We did all the work on the revision, as we've always done. And then ultimately we send it to him. So I appreciate your perspective. I don't agree, but that, I'm not a board member. I gotta do what you tell me to do.
Since we're under comments only, could we put it on as an agenda item and put to bed once and for all?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other board comments?
I guess what are we going to do with this?
That was closed, and this is the letter to Mr. Ellison. So put them together, we have a file, put the whole thing together. I mean, he's not interested enough to pick up his mail, but he's interested enough to come here, more than a year later.
I mean, didn't we respond to him in the past?
I try to,
We have, we responded.
and I apologize in public about that,
And the other thing I'll say, and I said it with Roy, I don't want to bring up Roy's son, personnel issues are done in closed session, and it's a board decision. So no matter what we do, we're not going to win with this guy, but it would be done in closed session.
But we've already
put it to bed.
dealt with it. Greg said he didn't need to go into closed session.
Right.
It's been dealt with.
it's done.
And he didn't bother to come to the meeting when it was dealt with, so I don't know what to tell him yet. Is there any other board comments? Todd, you have anything? Kathy? Scott?
But I just, the local observer could, while we're still trying to work out with the township and IFC and cost recovery, could we try to stay out of the press with quotes by, nobody's ever named, well, you are, Greg, but nobody else.
I'm named
It's
for
always,
everything.
but it's obvious that somebody who's part of the fire district that has some opinions. But it's not the way to get this resolved.
I'm good with that.
The guy, I mean, he calls people's names, and I don't know, who knows, if he makes it up. It's just sad.
It needs to get worked out between the two boards.
Exactly. And let's try to keep it, not work it out in the press.
Any other comments?
We can work it out. Can't work it out in the press because we won't, they don't talk to us.